Good afternoon, everybody. Good to be back. I was gone last week. What's up, Ryan? How you doing, buddy?
Good. Hanging in there.
I was patrolling the inner regions of Kansas last week. It was real fun. No, it was actually a pretty good time. One of our long-standing clients invited me to be his guest at his country club member guest. So I played 36 Wednesday, 36 Thursday, 36 Friday, 36 Saturday. Yeah. So I played.
You played every day. I didn't know you played that much every day.
Slight amount of, we played a slight amount of golf. And then there was an option to play Sunday. And we're both like, because I didn't fly out till like 7 on Sunday. And there was an option to play Sunday. And we looked at each other more and I'm like, let's just go get breakfast and relax because I'm tired. And he's like, I'm tired too. And then I came home and I'm like, man, it's taking me 3 days. I come home. My wife's like, should we get a massage? I'm like, yes. Please. My shoulders still hurt. Like, says that much golf just messes you up. But played pretty well. Can't really argue with it. So that was good. How are you doing? How'd you and Cindy do last week? So you guys were solo.
We did good. We talked all about the risk assessments and had several conversations after that that were also along those same lines. Was talking to a vendor today as well about how important assessments are coming across the board.
They're becoming like one of the things that we're seeing is they're becoming mandatory. We're actively seeing. We're kind of watching. It's funny because we sat here, Ryan, you and I, as you know, I was your coach. You were my client 2 years ago. But we talked about, I still remember you and I talking about how we see the writing on the wall of all these things becoming mandatory, and we're watching this happen.
Yeah. Yep. And it's becoming more and more so every day. And now, more compliance coming into these different verticals and industries.
Mm-hmm. Regulated by their industries. Potentially, I think we're going to see some regulated. We just saw the SEC come down with a bunch of stuff. Did you see the SEC just came down to a big company? I'm not going to name any names on this, but this just happened in the last couple of days. That the SEC just came back on a breach that a large company had, a public company had, to where they're going after the decision makers personally for things.
And I think that's one of the biggest differentiators. That was one of the things the key things I took out of the FTC safeguards is the fact that they are insisting that there is somebody within the organization that takes responsibility for it. Because
and they're basically they're trying to make it so instead of those people feeling enabled or empowered to just thumb their nose up at technology, you are going to be personally held responsible if you don't do something. So I think
or place the blame, right?
Yeah, and I think it's a really important thing for this industry. We say a lot in our webinars. We say a lot to our coaching clients. You are uniquely positioned in the best time this industry has ever seen. So Cindy and I talk about sales a lot. We talk about sales and growth and all these things and how you should lead with cybersecurity, how you should lead with the cybersecurity risk assessment, like Ryan and Cindy talked about last week. If you did not see last week, you can go back and watch it in the guide section, or you can just scroll down in the groups and whatever pages and search for it. Okay, Ryan, let's I'm going to keep moving. So we get on schedule today. So instead of like Chris yapping for 30 minutes, because that's what I do. I'm going to bring your stuff on screen and I'm just going to kind of like hand it over as I got things to talk about. I will talk about, but guys, this is really important stuff today. We're getting into the technical side. So I think these are really relevant conversations. So Ryan, take it away.
Yeah, and today is really about the philosophy of the technical side. And this of the 4 weeks that we're doing, this one is really one of my favorite ones, just because I built my MSP on this concept of standardizing the stack and streamlining operations because I purposely wanted to keep my MSP small. I didn't want to have to manage a bunch of technicians. So I built it this way to be as streamlined as possible. And I think this gives you the opportunity to really scale your business, regardless of what size it is today, to scale it into the future and be able to accept like any deal that comes across your desk. It comes your way. 100 seat deal comes by, you can take it. You don't have to think twice about it. You don't have to worry about hiring additional staff the way that these stacks can be set up. Mm-hmm. So last week, like we said, we talked about the CSRA, understanding the risk. and why that's so important, why we teach our members that all roads lead to the cybersecurity risk assessment. It's just so important that these companies and these business owners understand that they have risk in a lot of cases, because most of them are in denial and don't even understand this and what that risk is, because they can't make a decision on how they want to move forward with IT and cybersecurity without knowing that stuff. Today, we're going to be talking about standardizing the stack, like I said, and then we've got a holiday week coming up next week. So in 2 weeks, we are going to get into our week 3 topic, which is the support stack. So we're going to talk about all of the different tools that probably most MSPs are familiar with, but what tools that we recommend and are really a good fit for that support part of the stack, because at the end of the day, they don't understand the security stuff as much. In a lot of cases, you get graded on how you perform with the support level of the stack. And then finally, on the week 4, we're going to talk about the security stack. This is usually the one that gets the most interest, especially when we have those Facebook posts where we talk about $300 a seat and what does that include and how do you get that. That's going to be the nuts and bolts of that is what we recommend that you have in your security stack, and then give you some examples of some of the vendors that provide some of those services.
Probably the biggest topic that we get questions on, what we know we should charge more money, but what should we put in it? And I think it's a really important discussion.
Yep, exactly. And it's one of those questions that we get. So talking about the stack and standardizing it, so there's one big thing I think we need to get out of the way, and it's something that I know a lot of MSPs have been taught over the years. A lot of MSPs are still doing, but the thing is that these are dead. Precious metals plans, as I like to call them, your gold, silver, platinum, your good, better, best, those types of plans are dead. And part of the reason is that we're doing our clients a disservice by giving them these multiple options. At the end of the day, they put your clients at risk. They give them a false sense of security. We give them these options, right? And then they take it and they assume that because we gave them these options that all of them are valid. And what happens in that kind of situation? They look at the price and they choose the one that's the cheapest because you offered it. So that's something that must be acceptable, and they're okay with that. And that's just not how we do things anymore. It's not how we can do things. We need to take responsibility. We need to be the experts. We need to get into that situation where they understand they're coming to us because we know this stuff, not because we are, a grocery store and we have all of these different products on a shelf and they choose what they think that they need based on, in most cases, zero knowledge.
Yeah. Hey, Ryan, I got one piece of feedback on that. I know we're going to have some people that immediately say, well, I don't want to offer everything. Okay, here's what I will tell you. You can always offer less. You should go in, and this is where the sales part comes in, and this is where Cindy and my comments and our discussions that Cindy and I had are very, very important. You should go in with, here, we did an assessment on you. Here's all the things that we found. Here's what you should have. I want less. I recommend you don't have less. Oh, I want less. I don't want to pay more. Okay, fine. But here's where the liability line has to sit. So you should still be able to show we recommended more, they chose less, and here's the proof. So now you have to not only assess, but when they decline, you have to make sure they understand why, the potential repercussions, and that there's sign off on it in some capacity.
At a minimum, you need to be having this conversation with your clients. You cannot roll with the idea of, hey, I understand that they're probably assuming I'm doing everything that they need, but you need to have that conversation with them and make sure that that's clear and spelled out. And if they don't want to move forward with those security services that you as the IT expert know that they need, that they're signing off on the fact that you had that conversation and recommended it. Because we've seen this like in person happen with people where they've gone through this, they've had that conversation, and the company that they had the conversation with that declined the services still got hacked, of course. And then, who's the first person that they come and point the finger at? The MSP, even though they've already had that conversation. So it's really, really important that you have that and at least get something in writing that you've made those recommendations. And part of the reason that we do this is because they need to understand the importance of layered security and the attack vectors and things that are out there. Going back to that, what I was talking about with the CSRA, the reason that we do that is because these folks do not have any comprehension of the risk that they have. They're used to the way of doing things with IT that they've done for years and years and years, and they don't really think about this stuff. And they need that information in order to make that decision going forward. So another reason that this is such an important thing. I don't know if anybody
2 years ago.
Yep. I don't know if anybody remembers. Yeah, it's coming up on exactly 2 years ago. Major supply chain hack that really impacted MSPs. So an RMM tool that will go nameless got hit during a supply chain attack. That RMM tool then pushed out ransomware viruses to any of the endpoints that were attached to that, and caused all sorts of havoc. It was one of those weekends where we went in. So I believe 4th of July was like on a Saturday or a Sunday that weekend, and like Friday afternoon was when the news on this started hitting. Everybody was kind of panicking, making sure that they weren't affected. But this is a real thing, and the reason I bring this up when we talk about layered security and making sure that you're giving the customer what you know that they need is because there was two distinct things that happened in the fallout of this. So all of that ransomware got pushed out, and the people who didn't have any type of layered security, who just had your typical antivirus and firewall type solution, the support based solutions, they all came in the next Monday morning with ransomware on their computers. The ones that were using a layered security approach, they still had that payload sent out to those machines, but it never was allowed to deploy because of those third-party tools and those layered security. So that's why it's so important. In some cases, it's important to protect your customer against the tools that you put on their machines for them. It's a really important thing to remember as you're going through all of this type of stuff. The other thing is more of an operational thing. So supporting multiple stacks becomes a strain on your operations. This was something I mentioned a little bit earlier. I like to keep the stack standard across our clients. I mean, obviously, each client is going to have certain nuances, certain line of business software that's unique to them. That comes with the territory. But keeping the base of your plan consistent and standard across your customers really helps operations in keeping up with things. You don't have to train techs on 200 different things. They know what they have. They can jump into a ticket and immediately be familiar with what they're working with and what they need to jump on. So it really helps streamline those things. It reduces the variables and it allows you to be more consistent. So, if you don't have that, if you have to, switch gears every time you have a ticket, just think about how that works and how that ticket efficiency, how the customer experience gets with that. The training of your techs. I mean, this is something that's a big deal for people, no matter what you're doing. So imagine having to train them on a bunch of different stacks at the same time. It really becomes cumbersome and something that just it makes you unable to support nearly as many endpoints as you can otherwise. And when we're talking about multiple stacks, you want to be careful too about taking on any client that comes your way. Like I know a bunch of people who will, as soon as they find a lead, they don't qualify that lead, or they ask some questions, and they're just willing to take any dollar that comes their way. And I get the gut reaction to try and want to do that, right? We're all in this business to make money. But sometimes you got to be careful, because not all money is good money. We've all had those pain in the butt clients that just cost us more money in the long term, or the amount of effort that we have to put in them for the amount of money that we're actually making off of them doesn't really work. So you just got to be really careful about taking on any client that comes your way. And so a really good way of packaging this up into an example is, supporting a client that is on Microsoft 365 versus Google Workspace. Okay, they both provide similar type of solutions, but in different ways. And so you have to be careful. If you're training your staff on both of these tools, that can be cumbersome. If you're trying to jump in and out of these different tickets, trying to know that they're on Google Workspace and have a bunch of other third-party tools that you have to use to secure that, versus Microsoft 365 that has a lot of native policies built into the system. They're two totally different beasts. So at the end of the day, you kind of have to decide and choose, is that something that makes sense? Do you want to work with both of those, or does it make more sense to say, hey, we're a Microsoft 365 shop. These are the clients that we support. If somebody comes to us and they want to use or currently using Google Workspace, we'll talk to them briefly about the benefits of 365 and why we use it. If they have a business need or want to stay there, let's find a business partner that we can choose to work with and send that business their way, and vice versa. So when they get somebody who's on Microsoft 365 that doesn't want to go to Google Workspace, we've got a referral partnership now. And it really helps keep those different things streamlined, because if you think about it, the platform and difficult. Stack. Perfect stack in air quotes here. There is no perfect stack. This is the first thing that you need to understand. There is no perfect stack.
You really have Taylor Swift on there?
I don't have Taylor Swift on there. Our graphics guy, who's very, very good, by the way. And
you're back. You're back. You're back.
Very true. I guess I got to take ownership of it. Yep. We got Taylor Swift in there. There you go. Taylor Swift is telling us there's no perfect stack, so we know that. And the reason I say this is because a lot of people will kind of get into a rut of trying to figure out what the perfect stack, and they use that as an excuse to kind of delay things. And this is something I tell people all the time on the tech calls that we have with our members. There's no perfect stack. Don't spend 6 months trying to develop the perfect stack before you roll it out and get going. Because even if you were to find the mythical perfect stack today, 6 months down the road, it's not going to be the perfect stack anymore. We all know how quickly things change in this industry, particularly from the security side of things. So don't get stuck and hung up on that perfect stack, because you're going to be changing something or tweaking something with your stack in a minimum of 6 months anyway. So just be prepared for that and be okay with that. It's really important to just make sure that you have those layers in place. So the analogy that I like to use when we're talking about the stack is the chicken soup analogy. So everybody knows somebody who's got their own grandmother's famous recipe for chicken soup, right? Same thing with your stack. At the end of the day, you're making chicken soup. Your stack is your chicken soup. There's a million ways to make that recipe. And think about it like a recipe. You want to build the stack that works with your values and your workflows. So the stack that my MSP had is going to be totally different in a lot of cases than the stack that another MSP down the road has. There's a lot of different variables that can go into that. I talked about values and workflows. It could be about the types of clients that you're working with. So who are your target clients? And when you're building that stack out, think about those target clients and what their needs are. Again, going back to kind of standardizing the stack, we always talk about having niches that you're going after from a marketing standpoint. Go back and look at Lindsay's 4 weeks, which Lindsay's was, we had Cindy's and Lindsay's back in there, but go check out the guide section and look at those marketing. She's going to talk to you about having a niche, so you're talking to people in their language. So think about things similarly with the stack. You want that stack to support those niches that you're working with. Do your target clients have specific compliance requirements? Do they need to be CMMC, HIPAA, FTC safeguards is a big one right now. So making sure that your stack satisfies the needs of those compliance requirements to make sure that you are filling the needs of the clients that you're working on. Another thing to consider is, are your clients on premises or are they remote? And then I kind of argue with myself a little bit here that, in my opinion today, it doesn't really matter. I think I would look at any situation as a work from anywhere solution. We did a webinar with Citricom yesterday talking about their Control One platform. And that was kind of, the comment that I made to them is I looked at everybody as a work from anywhere situation, because even if they had almost all of their staff working in that brick and mortar office on an everyday basis, what have we learned in the last 2 years? You need to be ready to work from home tomorrow, because who knows what could happen overnight. So making sure that you have that flexibility to be able to do that, I think makes all the difference in the world.
Well, it also makes it so you can support your client from anywhere. You can, not only can your client be anywhere, but you can be anywhere. And Ryan, you went through that too. I think that was an important thing in your growth period.
Yeah. So it was nice for me to be able to work from anywhere. It was also really nice. I had a tech who was fully remote. He came to me one day and said, "Hey, you know what? I want to go to Spain for a couple of weeks. Is that cool?" I'm like, so long as you're working the hours that you're working, yeah. I mean, that's one of the perks of being remote. And it was funny because we had feedback from a bunch of clients. They're like, yeah, I worked a couple tickets with him, and then he let me know he's been in Spain for a couple of weeks. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. So think about it on all sides of the equation, but be prepared and just you want to give your clients that flexibility to be able to do that as well. Another thing I hear about a lot, especially probably the last 6 or 8 months, is tool overlap. So a lot of these tool vendors, they have their core feature, their bread and butter, the thing that they went to market with first, the thing that they're known for, the thing that they're best at. And then over time, in order to stay competitive, many of them add these, what I like to call value add features. And some of them are really, really good. And some of them essentially are just like check boxes, right? So they've all got that feature comparison chart with all the different things that they have, and some of them are just checking boxes. So these are things you got to look at. I mean, I know a lot of people, when they're fine tuning the costs and everything within their stack, they look at these things and they wonder, what do I need? Like, hey, this tool offers all of this stuff. Do I just go with this one, even though it has the overlap with this one? And my answer to that is choose the one that has the feature set that best suits your needs. So you just something to add? You did the lean in, so
no. Well, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, like there's so many MSP owners that are out there pitching specific tools, and then they have their clients. I don't want to say their clients are married to a brand a lot.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think, as I understand, 5 years ago, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever, it was different, and we could easily do that, or it wouldn't matter. You could keep the same stack for. I looked at the stack I had in 2010. It was pretty much the same stack I had in 2015 when I sold the company. It's very similar. It didn't change much. The landscape we're in now is totally different.
Yeah.
And now, instead of this being, I'm going to keep this singular tool for years, which also brings in the whole discussion about vendors and demanding long-term agreements and all these. I mean, I'm not going to get into that. I don't think, our goal is not to get into that, but that's something you have to evaluate and look at, because your stack is going to change, and is your vendor going to change with you? And I think where I'm going with this, that kind of goes with the tool overlap. And Ryan, I know you're going to cover this, but I want to make sure I reiterate it, then you can state it a little bit more, is you're going to have tool overlap, but you're also you need to be focusing on selling a solution to a problem, not a point software.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And a lot of these tools,
that's what I was thinking about, and what was blatant.
And a lot of these tool overlap things are really more internal conversations, I think, that people have, where they're just trying to, save every penny that they can. So, you've got one tool that does, PI or does vulnerability scanning, but then they add a PII scanner, right? And you've got another tool that does PII scanning. There's nothing wrong with evaluating both of those and determining, like, does that tool that you've already got that has added PII scanning do it well enough to where you can replace the other one? And if the answer is yes, then absolutely go for it. But if it's not, and it was just one of those things that they kind of half-ass introduced into the platform so that they can say that they do something else and look better on those feature comparison charts. The fact that it's there doesn't mean you have to use it. So use the tools that for what they do, and if they come up with additional tools that you can add on to that, just really evaluate them and make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And then you also want to make sure that you're looking at the bigger picture too. So one example here that I think comes up a lot and really works in this example is what people are having debates over what email protection is the best. And email protection is really good in this example, because it's one of those things that it depends on the email coming through. One product may stop it while another product lets it through, and then you have the vice versa scenario where the other product stops something that the second one didn't. So I think this is a really good argument here, but people will go down rabbit holes for months trying to figure out what mail protection that they want to use. And so my answer to that is, think about how much time you're spending on this and how it looks in the big picture of things. Okay. So long as you have the other layers in place, and this is why layered protection, another reason why layered protection is so important. If you have all of those other layers in place, like security awareness training to make sure that you're training your people on what to look for and what to hopefully not click on in these emails. If you have something like an application whitelisting program, like a threat locker in place that's going to stop anything that you haven't explicitly allowed to run, at the end of the day, your mail protection doesn't matter as much because you've got those other layers in place. No matter what you're using, the way that those algorithms work, something's going to get through. It may, this email might not get through on your platform, but it gets through on somebody else's, and vice versa. But again, at the end of the day, if you have something in place to handle all of these other layers, you should be insulated. And that decision really isn't worth the couple of months that people will sometimes go down trying to decide what's going to be the best.
And also, here's another thing. most MSPs, we focus in my coaching program exclusively on sell first, because we want to rip you away from that constant I'm working on my tool set thing. Now none of that means that the tool set isn't important. None of that means that you shouldn't be focusing on it. All we're saying is if you put revenue first, you're going to be able to make different choices because you have cash flow. Totally different animal than, oh, I got to go with this tool because it's a little bit cheaper because I don't have enough MRR to support it, et cetera. It's really important that's here. It's really critical.
Yep, for sure. One of the other big things that we talk a lot about within our program when it comes down to things like the stack, and something I think was really key into allowing me to scale my MSP but keep it small and manageable, was the use of managed solutions, particularly when it comes to security-based solutions. Do you want to do things like hire, build out your own SOC, which I was talking to one guy said minimum $3 million to build out your own SOC. Or do you want to use some of these managed solutions and leverage their expertise and what they do best to help scale your business? Again, my goal was to be in a position where, if any type of opportunity came along, I didn't have to say, sorry, we're not big enough, or sorry, we'd have to hire 3 people in order to take that on. So, especially right now, knowing how difficult it can be to find and hire techs quickly.
And let me ask you this. I'm not super technical anymore. You're more than me, but I don't even think that you're up to some of these guys' level anymore. Right?
No, I got out of it largely the last year of MSP.
Are the days of I am in the trenches 100% managing every solution for my clients, are they over? Because realistically, if it was me building an MSP right now, I would be a sales and marketing engine. And then I'd partner with companies to deliver the services that really did the things that I think they should be doing, which is your fully managed SOC, your fully managed SIM, realistically partnering with a master MSSP, which is what many of these vendors are that the MSP channel has now. So am I off base, or because that's where, if I was to sit here right now, start an MSP from scratch, that's what I would do. I would also do an incident response firm. I would also probably do a data destruction firm. I would do probably all 3 together, maybe even a physical security firm, because they kind of go together, because you can drive, all those things together. But am I off base with the days of the traditional MSP overall pretty much being gone?
I think so. I mean, the way that I've described it is I think these days we're more of a general contracting firm. And then we have, the different subcontractors that fill those certain things. I think probably, with mostly everything that IT companies have traditionally done, I think the answer is absolutely yes. I think the only one where there's maybe some debate, and it depends on how you want to build your MSP, and again, what your values and what your workflows are, comes into the traditional help desk stuff. So there are definitely some really good providers out there that provide outsourced help desk services. But there's also the benefits of having your own staff that are running that. There's a lot of really good offshore solutions too. I know several MSPs right now that have a combination of both, where they have their client facing locally based MS or the technicians, and then they have some offshore technicians who are handling their after hours and non-client facing stuff. So there's a lot of solutions there. With regard to things like security, absolutely 100%. It's way more effective, way more scalable to use those managed solutions that are out there that have this stuff built out, and that's all they do.
Because if you go, if you guys are not in my big Facebook group, it's the IT and MSP Business Owners group on Facebook. We got 21,000 plus MSP members in there. Every single day, we see guys oh, hey, I'm trying to do this. I got a hack going on, or I got a breach going on. I'm just wiping and reloading everything. We see these guys trying to manage this thing. That's a ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
So it's something to think about.
It's not as scalable, and you can't possibly be as good at it. I remember 10 years ago, pretty much every MSP or every IT firm that I was aware of did anything related to IT. Pretty much everybody offered web design services, everything imaginable. And you just don't see that as much anymore. The ones that you do see, they've got it broken out where they've got specific departments that are doing that. I remember when I started my MSP almost 15 years ago, That was one of the things. Did I want to do web design services? No, but in order to compete with the other IT firms in the area, like you really
have to do everything, right?
And it is so different now. So nowadays, if somebody came to me and they wanted to, well, I keep doing this. I'm trying to get my past and present tense stuff. I'm a recovering MSP. So a couple of months ago, when I still had my MSP, if somebody had come to me and wanted web design services, yeah, we can help, but we absolutely 100% outsource that to somebody else. Because it's not what we specialize in. It's not what we're good at. Security services, and I had a conversation with somebody the other day, like, as a business owner, do I need to be CISSP certified? Do I need to have that certification? If you want to get it, go for it. But do you really need it as the business owner? No, I mean, you're still, you need to understand the high level concepts of security, but do you need to understand the ins and outs of what you're looking for in a log file? No, because that stuff's going to be done by your SOC analyst, the managed SOC that you use. So
nor should you even realistically try anymore.
Exactly.
Like you shouldn't even be touching it.
Nope, you shouldn't. And specifically when we talk about, incident response is an even bigger example. And that's something that we see a lot of MSPs jumping into and thinking that they can do. You may not even be a security focused MSP, but if somebody calls you and says that they've got a ransomware virus, I think that the gut reaction of most MSPs out there is like, yep, let me jump in there and see what I can do to help. And we've talked about this a lot over the last year, basically making the comparison of, if you do that, and you don't know what you're doing, you're essentially contaminating a crime scene today. Not understanding the things that need to be done with forensics, just going in and doing a wipe and reload. Does that get them back up and running? Yes. If they had insurance and the insurance company says, hey, what happened? We need the forensics. We need the proof. We need the evidence so we can take a look at this before we file their claim. You potentially just screwed them out of their insurance claim by going in there and taking care and just wiping and reloading everything. So it's really, really important to make sure that you focus on the things that you understand and are trained in and the things that you do best. Can you outsource that stuff and still provide that with your company and solve for that? Absolutely. So some of the examples of things that are out there that you can get managed service, so managed security services, a lot of the ones that we know and we work with kind of handle the whole gambit of things. You can get ones that will do EDR, but then manage them for you. Perimeter security, so cloud-based firewalls, SASE, or even hardware-based firewalls. There's a lot of vendors out there that now will provide the hardware firewall and manage those things for you. Managed security awareness training is a really
SASE is going to be a pretty unique thing in the next few years here.
I think it's already exploding. We had that call, like I said, with Citricom yesterday, talking about their SASE product, and that to me, I think it's been around for a while. What has traditionally been the difficult part with those types of solutions is the reliability. It's one thing if a firewall goes down at one location, you've got those people to worry about. If you've got a SASE solution that has that problem, you're potentially, you've got everybody at that customer or everybody across your client base that's on that platform having an issue. So I think that's come a long way in the last couple of years. And I think we're already to a point where that's starting the explosion part of that being a common service. I talked a little bit about managed solutions for help desk and NOC services. Again, this is one where your mileage may vary. If I was going to be building an MSP from scratch today, I think a managed help desk and NOC services are something that I would look at, but probably down the road to augment my existing help desk and NOC staff. I think it's really, really key. What I found through trial and error was that having people that were dedicated to you, that you trained as your front-facing client experience really makes a huge difference. But having a managed help desk and NOC service to augment that and kind of handle some of the background tickets, the easy, mind-numbing tickets that most techs don't like to do, like password resets, I think that makes perfect sense. So I think this is something for a down the road to help you scale kind of solution, but it's huge. Incident response, again, this one is so critical, and I can't say this enough. If you're an MSP out there and you get that opportunity because somebody called and found you because they had a ransomware incident, don't chase the dollar signs and try and do it yourself if you're not trained in it. It's just not worth it, and there are plenty of options out there with incident response providers where you're still going to end up making a decent amount of money handling this, but you're letting the experts do what they do best. right? So when we worked incident response, we had a firm that we worked with. They handled all the forensics. They gave us the go ahead when it was time to wipe those machines and reload them and get them back up and running. These things are high stress situations. This is the worst day of a business owner's life when they have to deal with something like this. You want to make sure that you have the professionals handling this type of stuff. The amount of training and specialization that these incident response folks have is very different than your average technician, or even understanding how to provide security services. The one that we used, the guy who headed up that department used to hack nation states as at the NSA. So that's the level of people that are typically handling this stuff.
Yep.
And because we're seeing such a requirement from insurance companies these days that you need to have this forensics in order to even have your claim looked at.
Well, that's a big thing that I think we're seeing, not only for everybody that's watching, not only the incident response, but pre-incident, making sure that you have liability in place, not only for the client, but in for you, making sure that you have agreements signed to make sure you have all those things rolling across the board. Because if you don't have, now it's almost a game against who's going to get their claim paid and not.
Yeah.
Because, it's funny. I stand in all my rooms when I speak and I say, hey, everybody raise your hand. Who can prevent all hacks? Leave your hands down, or leave your hand up, and all hands go down. So we all know they're going to get hacked, but the client doesn't realize that. So our job now is to educate them and then make it, including the insurance company knows that they're going to get hacked. So it's making it so the insurance company can say, okay, we knew it was coming, but you did everything you could.
Yeah. And that's a lot of what we're trying to do, is dispel a lot of these myths and prevent, that situation where you get caught with your pants down because your client got breached and you never even talked to them about security because in your head you thought they were never going to pay for it. You need to have that conversation. You need to give them the opportunity to turn those services down. But even before that, to make that more likely that they're going to understand that, that's why we talked last week about the risk assessment, making sure that they're educated on what's actually going on out there and what they need. So really, really important stuff. Some other examples of managed solutions that you can look at. ThreatLocker, very popular product. They have a management platform. So that was really cool. A lot of people are afraid of things like ThreatLocker because they just assume there's going to be a lot of management of that type of tool. One, we found that wasn't necessarily the case, but two, they have a management program to do that. So a lot of these management tools, they handle the day-to-day and you only get the ticket for those escalations. So it significantly reduces the amount of time you or your techs have to spend in managing this stuff. 365 management is another big one that we heavily leveraged. We used 365 and Intune, Azure Active Directory very, very heavily. And while it is something that is easy enough to manage on your own, it is a pretty big and complex beast. So we used a company that was basically our 365 specialist. So they set up all of our tenants, they deployed all of our policies, they updated them on a quarterly basis. When we ran into things that Microsoft does weird updates all the time. When we ran into something weird that we couldn't figure out, we had them to be able to reach out to and kind of troubleshoot some of those stuff, as opposed to waiting, sometimes a couple of weeks for Microsoft to respond to those things. So that's another really good example of using somebody as an outsourced specialization service. Web design and SEO, we talked a little bit about. VoIP services, that's another one that a lot of people, can you do it yourself? Absolutely. And I've had this debate, I guess, for lack of a better term, with people. We always chose to outsource that. We worked with partners, and so we would refer our customers to them to handle the VoIP needs, and we would get like a little bit of a royalty or a kickback, but we didn't have to deal with things like the taxes or the day-to-day. Could I have made more money by doing those things all internally and white labeling stuff? Absolutely. But it was more valuable to me to streamline our processes and not have all of that time being spent on our end and our techs for what we could just have that other company take care of for you. So next, we're going to talk a little bit about future-proofing your stack. So this is another one, particularly as businesses are starting out, where they tend to run into trouble down the road and they don't think about the status of their business moving forward. So, my advice, and don't just listen to me. I mean, I talked to a bunch of people trying to figure this out. Chris, you and I had a little debate about this, and is there a different stack that we should recommend for small new MSPs versus more established MSPs? And I talked to a bunch of established MSPs and said, if you could go back, like, what would you do? And this is kind of where we came to. So long as you're charging properly for your services, you can afford the right tools today. just because you're small, you don't have to go back and find the cheapest tool possible. And then, 5 years down the road, have to, reinvent the wheel to change and get the tools that you should have been using all along. And that's where I think, the mistake that MSPs make when they're starting out isn't that they didn't use the right tools. It's that they weren't charging properly in order to use the right tools. And I think it's really important to look at that way.
Another thing that we've had come up recently is one of the things that I recommend, and that we obviously Ryan was talking about his precious metals plans earlier and how they're dead. And what he means by that, if you guys weren't here for that, is the silver, gold, platinum, or those different levels of plans, that good, better, best mindset is pretty much dead. And so what we recommend on top of that is to put an all-inclusive help desk plan, all-inclusive on-site labor. And a lot of what happens on many of the precious metals plans, the top tier or the all-inclusive plan, is people are like, oh, we are now responsible for everything and it's unlimited everything. You have to limit your scope. That's what your master service agreement is for. That's what your statement of works for. That's what your SLA, SLO is for, your service level agreement or your service level objective. So you have to be the one that sets the boundaries. This is why you have agreements of what you can support and what you won't support, or what you at least won't bring to remediation completion on. So just because you have tools in place, just because we have protections in place, doesn't mean we're going to support all the way to the cows come home.
Right.
You have to put these things in, and I put this very similar, Ryan. We were talking about this, you and I, on our onboarding call this past Monday. Just envision it like the contractor that puts in hurricane-proof windows at a home in Florida, and then a hurricane comes and destroys all the windows. It's not the contractor's fault because the hurricane's coming. But if you do the right things, insurance picks up the bill. That's what we're talking about here. So it's very important that you separate that church and state type mindset. And you have to understand this. Yep. And it all starts with like deniability on the front side, with your assessment all the way through your serviceability side.
Yep. And the contracts is a great point. And I think that's another one of those things that's like a blind spot for people where they don't think about that stuff. So, I remember myself having questions about why would I want to do an all-in plan? I just the assumption and the head trash that we have is that customers are just going to take advantage of that. And I think for one, they don't take advantage of it nearly as much as you expect them to. But two, you have to have those rules in place, right? Like if you don't have it specifically stated that you have minimum requirements in your MSA, and then what's to stop that customer from going, hey, we have unlimited service. We need you to make this 10-year-old machine work. That's not what that's intended for. You need to have those minimum requirements in there so people understand what the ground rules are. And I think that goes back to the completeness of your stack as well. People do have that gut reaction in order to make the sale to take one thing or this thing out of the stack because the client has asked for that. But think about the reason that you put it in the stack in the first place. I tell people straight up, the ideal situation is the less that you have to call me, the better both of us are doing. And I think that really resonates with some people, because if you take those tools out, those tools were put there because they are likely going to reduce the amount of problems that somebody has and the tickets that come through. So you're taking that out to make the price cheaper for them, but you're actually adding more work to yourself too. So
if you think about, Ryan, where we were 5 years ago with clients expecting ROI on IT services. A lot of them expected it. Like, what's the ROI on your service? How can you make my people more efficient, et cetera, et cetera? Now we're in a place where you can actively sit there in the chair across from a decision maker and say, hopefully the ROI on my cybersecurity and managed services protections are zero. Because that means we didn't have to use anything down the road. Hopefully the ROI is zero. What's the ROI on general liability insurance? What's the ROI on health insurance? You know what the answer is? Hopefully zero. We don't want to use the insurance. So we want to have protections in place, but prevention doesn't exist anymore. Prevention is a mirage, and the client has to understand that.
And I think it even makes us more important these days than insurance. I still think that you need both. But the fact that we're seeing all of these different restrictions and exclusions being added to insurance policies, if the attacker that they sourced the ransomware attack to is found to be a nation state, now all of a sudden it's an active war and it's not covered by your policy. That makes what we do that much more important. That insurance policy is there as a safety net to pay for the incident response if something does happen, because nobody can stop all hacks. But the fact that we have this stuff in place and that our customers are following our recommendations means they're considerably less likely to get attacked in the first place. And if they do have a successful attack get through, the blast radius is going to be significantly smaller. So all of those things are going to help you, because you don't want to get hacked. You don't want to have to use these things and put them to the test. And if that does happen, you still don't want to have to use your insurance if you can at all help it.
You mentioned a very important thing right there. We had Chris Krebs, who is a former national security advisor for the White House, on our stage back in Charlotte. And Chris mentioned 3 specific things, and you just used one of the things that he said. Your job as an IT service provider, managed service provider now, isn't to prevent things now. It's to limit the blast radius, controlled recover, and do your best to get your insurance claim paid, or your client's insurance claim paid. So you want to think about that versus our old school mindset, which was, I manage your IT so you can manage your business. You put that on your website or in any verbiage, you own it all.
100%. So, going back to future-proofing your stack, when you're evaluating what you want to use, again, make sure, I think the key piece here is make sure that you're pricing properly, because if you're pricing properly, you've got the options to do things the way that that they need to be done. So choose the tools that are for where you want to be. Think about where you expect your MSP to be in 5 years. I think PSA is a great example of this. Is your PSA going to give you the type of reporting that you're going to need 5 years down the road, where you're going to be more likely to be looking at variety of KPIs like profitability for that agreement, where it's taking into consideration not only all of your tool costs, but also evaluating and analyzing your ticket counts for each customer to make sure you're truly making the margins that you were expecting to make when you priced that out and sold that plan. You need to make sure you have tools to do that. There are a lot of new PSAs that are coming out that are quote unquote affordable, but a lot of the ones that I've seen and looked at, the things that they strip out from a feature set perspective is a lot of the reporting and business side things that you may not be as savvy on or as interested in as you're starting out your MSP, but you're damn well going to want to make sure that you know those things 5 years down the road. Switching something like a PSA is extremely painful, and moving records from one to another is not a fun task. So keep all of that stuff in mind. You may pay a little bit more than you want to pay now, but think about the cost savings you're going to have down the road by not having to go through all of those hoops and reinvent the wheel to do some of those things. The other thing with future-proofing your stack, like I said earlier, come to terms with the fact that your stack is never going to be perfect. It's just not. You're going to be updating it. You're going to be looking at it. To that end, though, don't get addicted to tool demos. I know a bunch of people that anytime they run into a new tool vendor with a slick pitch, they're scheduling a demo. Think about the amount of time that you spend doing tool demos, and the amount of time you spend, where you get sold on one and you go out to deploy it and then find out it's not as good as what you thought. Now, all of that time that's wasted in that. My recommendation for you is, most of these tools these days come with at least a 1-year term. If you settle on a tool and you deploy that tool and you've got a 1-year term on that, wait until about 9 months into that term to start looking at other options if you're thinking about switching. Don't be evaluating new tools all year round for that particular type of thing, because you're stuck with that one. Unless there's a specific problem where you're going to have to move on and move on early in order to handle customer experience issues and things like that. But really just try and make sure that you organize those types of things so you're not wasting a lot of time. I mean, Chris, how many probably the number one complaint we get from people in our program is not anything to do with the program itself, but it's the fact that they quote unquote don't have time to do the things that they know that they need to do to execute.
Yeah, and every time we dig into it, what are they doing? They're
looking at tools.
We actively have termed it, they get lost in MSP. Mm-hmm. And it's something that we actively talk about because it's almost like a disease.
It is.
Because as a tech person, who's some of our most successful people that come out of the gate? We just had Melanie Padron.
Yep.
come into our program, never been in IT, shifted over from the insurance industry, is actively selling for Derek, who's one of our members, crushing it. Doesn't care about tools. My team's got my back. They're handling that. My tech team's got me. And Derek has made a decision. I want to focus on being the CEO / I want to manage the tech team. He's doing a great job of that. But he's handed over sales to Melanie, and she is out there, brought her in, put her through our training program, and she, in her first 30 days, closed a $800,000 deal.
Yeah.
Like, that's the kind of stuff that you should be thinking about, not worrying about constantly reevaluating every tool under the sun.
Right. It almost makes me think about, so every Monday we have a security focused call and a tech tool focused call. Those are almost like recovery calls, right? So those are the places that we can have people go to and have their tool talk, so they're not spending the rest of the week in tool demos.
We should call it MSPA.
I was going to say, we need to rebrand those.
Managed Service Providers Anonymous.
Hi, my name is Ryan, and I'm MSP. All right. So
hey, there's Melanie commenting right now. So
yep.
That's cool. That's cool to see. So good job, Melanie.
She was not a plant either.
Yeah, she was not a plant. That was for sure.
All right. So I apparently skipped ahead and was talking about the PSA already. So that's all the stuff that we had. And then, so the other things I kind of want to finish up with here, and we can have a little bit of discussion on, the stack is the stack. This is the thing that I think is really, really important. More important than what are all of the components of your stack. You chose that stack for a reason. You're the IT expert, right? You need to make sure that people understand that and look at you that way. And a lot of the things that we talk about in our program kind of set that up. And people don't think about that when you look at the whole process. Every step along the way is something that just contributes further to the fact that you're the expert in this situation. You're not the old way of MSP where you're going in and saying, hey, we offer all of this stuff. What do you want? It's, we're now more the doctor, the lawyer in this relationship where they need to come to us, and we can obviously reach out to them, but they're coming to us because we're the ones who know this stuff and they want these solutions. Do a lot of them still try and go, oh, well, I don't understand that. I don't think I need that. Absolutely. But if you follow things and if you build out a process that sets the stage that you're the expert, you get a lot less of those questions. And when you do get those types of questions, you can push back and usually it doesn't go anywhere. So just remember not to sacrifice your stack just to make a deal. And I said it earlier, it applies here. Not every dollar is a good dollar for your business.
Yeah.
So if you have to sacrifice stuff in your stack, chances are, those sacrifices are going to come back to haunt you, either because you let that customer dictate the path of behavior and they're going to take that and they're going to run with it and become a pain in the butt for the rest of that relationship, or that thing that you allowed them to remove from your stack is just going to be something that adds more tickets to your monthly, so not only are you not making money on that piece that you had as part of the stack, but you're spending more time, more of your text time trying to help that particular customer.
Yeah, and I think you said something there that was really key, which is not letting the client dictate the path of support. And if you think about most MSPs' behavior, and I know you are on the other side of that screen, potentially don't see a lot of it. Not you, the guys watching. I know you potentially don't see a lot of MSPs. We do. We see hundreds of MSPs a month and thousands of conversations and all these different things going on. It is a constant behavioral issue of MSPs saying, I am so desperate for this business, I let the client tell me what to do always. Techs are people pleasers. And none of this means you're a bad person. None of this means you're a bad IT guy. None of this means anything negative, but you're enabling destructive behavior because you need the business so bad because you're not charging right, or you're enabling destructive behavior. You have to make sure, just like Ryan has on the screen, you are the expert. You dictate the stack. Start behaving like one. Believe it here.
One of the new analogies I've been using a little bit is it's kind of the difference in medical care, right? There's a lot of people who will get sick and they have, they can't figure out, they don't really know what they got, but what do? They go to the drugstore and they self-prescribe over-the-counter medication. If you've just got a cold, that kind of thing can work. If you've got some larger underlying condition, say cancer, do you want to go to the pharmacy and just pick out what you think you need, or do you want to go to the doctor and get this thing properly diagnosed and get the care that you need? That's really the place that we are as MSPs these days. Is we got to watch out for those customers that just want to go in and buy off the shelf what they think that they need, again with usually zero knowledge on what's going on out there and why they need the things that we're recommending. Or do you want somebody who's going to come to the doctor and ask for a professional opinion, get a diagnosis?
Yeah. And I understand, I totally get that you're potentially looking at your book of business and you're like, I don't even know where to start because this is what I've done. This is how I've run my business. Just takes 1% better each day, guys. Yep. That's it. So you put a plan in place. Most of this, if you watch some of our webinars, some of this other stuff, you can do all this stuff on your own. The key is discipline and holding yourself accountable. That discipline and accountability is so key. And I'll tell you, like Ryan, you know me pretty well at this point. I'm a pretty damn disciplined guy, but we all need to push. So I'm in the gym every day at 7:30. We talk about this every day, right? I'm constantly, like, he's on Eastern time, so he's messaging me. I'm like, stop messaging me. I'm in the gym, damn it.
Gym time is when I'm getting started with my work time.
Yeah. But I'm in the gym from 7:30 to 9. And I'm good at that. Like, I get up and I'm in the gym and all this other stuff, but I still have a personal trainer that comes to my house 5 days a week to push me, to get me the next step, the next level. So yes, work on this stuff, be disciplined, get yourself a little bit better every day, and make a plan. This is really important. Have a plan for yourself and implement this. And if you need help, we can help you with this stuff. Either watch my content or come on with us. Like, we would love to have you, but this is not a sales pitch. I want to make sure you guys understand how important this is.
It's really more of a mindset shift, and that was what I was going to add. The execution and accountability is like one of the key components of it. The other thing I see a lot with people is mindset. So either even before considering something like this, or even people who just joined the program, they still have that mindset thing, that switch that needs to be flipped. So I'm willing to bet that there's a lot of people who are watching this and going, yeah, but that doesn't work in my area. My clients will never go for something like that. They're never going to pay for something like that. And most of that, and a lot of our clients will agree with this. Most of that is in your head. Once you get past that part of your head and start talking to people about these things, you're going to find that it's not a matter of that they can't afford it or that they don't understand it or they don't think it. If you follow these steps and do these things and really believe that you're the expert because you do this every day, you're going to find that makes you the differentiator. It's going to be the differentiator for you. You're going to be the difference maker. You're going to be the one that comes in and they say, wow, I know you came in more expensive than the last 5 people that I talked to, but you're the only one that asked me these questions. You're the only one that talked about my risk and my security.
And let's not forget too, on top of that, one of the reasons that we beat this stuff home a lot is because it's hard to realize and hard for you guys to kind of go through these paths of, I have to change. And it takes some time. It's hard to do these changes on your own. It takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of commitment. It takes a lot of conditioning mentally, because we are so conditioned to do things the way we did. Also, your clients are so conditioned to use IT the way they did. One of the active things that we talk about on the sales side, and I want you guys to go back and watch some of the sales stuff that we present. One of the active things that we talk about is times have changed. I understand you've never budgeted for IT, but please understand, we've never had. In fact, there was a post today from one of our clients in Dallas. One of my clients that I pitched cybersecurity to just got breached, wired, Beck scammed for $300K. Did you see that from Michael?
Ryan? I did. Yep.
That stuff is happening, and you want to be on the right side of that, and you got to condition them. So that times have changed. Use that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And have that conversation. Regardless of the answer that they give you, it's important that you have that conversation, because that type of situation can go either way. Either that's a client that you have not yet talked about security with and who is assuming that you're doing all of these things, and then they're pointing the finger at you and starting to use words like gross negligence, or you've had that conversation with them and they decided to decline your advice And now when they come back and say, and point the finger at you, you say, no, we had this conversation. Here's that piece of paper that I sent you that said we did. And now, they're dealing with their insurance company, and you're not on the hook as far as liability. And hopefully, they're learning that lesson as well and taking your advice going forward.
Yep. Okay. Ryan, great job. Any last words from you today? I think you just got, I
think that was my last words right there. Have the conversation with your customers. So
I think that's really important. And make sure, and when Ryan specifically talked about have the conversation, at least bring up cybersecurity. Great example. Was talking to a medical director, medical office practice manager / director 2 days ago. I was with my wife. My wife's opening up a new med spa. I was talking to somebody from in the building, and I just asked her if she had cybersecurity insurance. She's like, no, we don't need that. And I went down this whole rabbit hole of all the stuff we talk about, and she looked at me like, this is all real? And I'm like, yeah, like this is all real. And she called, update on that actually. So I talked to her. Today is Wednesday, so that was Monday. Talked to her again yesterday, and she said, I called my insurance broker, and they have a 19-page application. This was the Hartford has a 19-page cybersecurity insurance application they wanted to fill out. She's like, who can help me? So I'm going to refer her to one of our MSP partners. But yeah, that's the stuff that's coming on. And she is a ear, nose, and throat doctor. Yeah. Like it's a four doctor private practice.
And that's something that a lot more people would be like, yeah, you do need that. But sadly, that is a common answer. No, I don't need that. And it's because they don't know any better.
And she didn't have any clue. Yeah. Like as soon as I started getting into banking, and I know we're kind of getting away from what we're talking about here, but it's really important because the conversation this is how you guys should be bringing up. I just saw this woman in conversation, and I just brought it up. Like, what do you like? I know what your practice is. What are you guys doing for that? And she kind of turned at me and said, "Oh," and I said, I asked her how much money they have, and she's like, "I really, we don't have anything." I'm like, "Okay, just envision half of the money in your checking account is gone tomorrow. Mm-hmm. What would that do to your practice, and what would your plan be?" And she said, "Well, the bank." She actually said, "The bank would take care of me." I'm like, "I want you to call your banker and ask them if they would take care of you." Mm-hmm. So people have this preconceived notion of insurance and banking and all this stuff in their head. It's not real anymore. Yeah. So it's your job now. Okay, Ryan, great job today. Gonna let you guys go. What do we got next week? Really quick, just so we can.
Next week we have 4th of July. So 2 weeks we have the support stack. So
really quick, we will not be here next week for our live broadcast. That is July 5th. We're gonna take a week off. Ryan's a really lazy guy, so he's taking a week off. We'll be back on July 12th. I'll be gone that week. I'm a lazy guy that week, but you'll be on with either you and Cindy or you and Lindsay that week.
Yep. So we'll be talking about the support stack.
Yes. Okay, great. And then also we have our live event. You guys can see that scrolling across the bottom. August 15th through 17th. You can hit that QR code if you want, or just go to live.7figuremsp.com, and we will definitely take care of you. We'd love to see you guys. We've got some amazing stuff. We got a full pre-day, 2 full days agenda, and all the other details are on the website there. You can take a look.
And a rooftop for the White Sox Cubs game.
White Sox, yep. Can't wait for that. White Sox Cubs. I'm a huge baseball fan. So much of our playbooks and everything we do is based on baseball and sports in general. So it's a big deal. So, all right, Ryan, thanks a lot. Great job today. And you guys, if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me a DM. Shoot Ryan a DM. We'd love to help you. Other than that, we'll see you guys later. Have a good week. Bye-bye.
Have a good one.